Hi, everyone. I had to rename the talk once I saw that I could make a triangle with this. So it's like just aesthetically pleasing. I am not going to show you that much code, but I'm here to show you a mental model and a framework that has been guiding a lot of my developer tooling, thinking, advising, and all that. I started my career as a financial analyst. I worked in hedge funds and trading and as an economist. And I think like a lot of my writing that you guys might have read or heard about, it comes from the point of view of like looking at developer tooling and frameworks as an investor and as an economist. So why do I say that? When I talk about impossible triangles, I don't mean this one, which you might have seen in math. I actually mean this other one, which if you've taken a macro sort of econ 101 class, you might be familiar with the impossible trinity of macroeconomics, which is like you have free capital flow and fixed exchange rate, or sovereign monetary policy. You can pick 2 out of 3 at best, but you cannot pick all 3. And you can sort of validate yourself thinking about it as someone, if you run your own country someday. Thinking about this as though is what I went through coming from Singapore, right? In Singapore, we want free capital flow, people investing and transferring money in and out. We want like a relatively stable exchange rate. In exchange for that, we do not get to make our own monetary policy. We basically import whatever monetary policy we have from the US. And you can freeze one of the others, then you have to give up on the others. And when you try to violate the impossible triangle, you get currency crises like we did in the 1990s and with the British pound sterling. Okay, anyway, so that's a whole different ballgame. Coming closer to tech, I think this is something that you might have also seen, another impossible triangle in tech, which is called the CAP theorem. I definitely think that CAP theorem is not become as popular recently just because it's really like, you can only ever pick 2 out of 3 sides. If you're interested in like the updates of CAP theorem, look up PACE-LC, P-A-C-E-L-C, which is not a triangle, but more accurate to the modern trade-offs of databases. Okay, so but really what we're talking about here is JavaScript. We're at JavaScript TypeScript conference. I am a survivor of the front-end wars of the 2010s, and obviously Mastra has roots in that. We can put names to all these. Obviously, I think the interesting thing is that when I think about these names, and I think when I worked at Netlify back in the day, I looked at all these other companies that were sort of peer groups to ours, and I was thinking like, all right, all of us are venture backed, like all of us are trying to compete in some way. All of us ended up building each other's features, and who would win? I think the answer is relatively obvious now, but 10 years ago it was not. And I think like that's a very sustainable way to just look at any industry, any sector of anything that you're trying to look at, not just as an investor, but also as a developer, because when you are a developer, you are also investing when you make a choice of framework or a choice of tooling, whatever you think about. In FinTech, this is a fun one. Can anyone put names to any of these? I forgot to mention that there might be some audience participation in this. Shout out one for expenses. Concur, Mercury? That's interesting. That's a fun one. Payroll. Gusto. Actually, I actually had Gusto's name on there. Okay, all right. I don't want to extend this too long. I actually have Mercury in that corner, and it's funny that whoever said that said Mercury for expenses because they do some expenses, but then there's also Ramp and Brex. So Ramp and Brex are like, hey, what the heck? Like, and I think like when you see these companies fighting and like starting to invade on each other's territory, you're seeing the impacts of the impossible triangle because they cannot all win together. As investors kind of have to pick sides. As people who are buying their tech or buying their software, you have to like think about like which of these needs are being expressed through what the shape of the market is right now, and what actually is useful for my company. Same thing for data engineering, which is the industry I was in before AI. This might be a tougher crowd to do this in, but shout out names: ELT pipelines. Databricks, ELT pipelines when a data warehouse is right there. Okay. BI? Oh, sorry. I see the theme. Okay, so I put Databricks there, but arguably they own everything. But it's interesting that the DBT Fivetran merger came as a direct result of them running out of TAM, right? Like so you can kind of predict this exact thing happening because they had nowhere else to go. The final point I made before coming back to LLM Infra is that they can also nest. You can go really, really small. My talk was supposed to be right after Browser-Base's talk, so I was going to do this. This is a fun one. Browser-Base will tell you that browser automation is all you need, but also you have web search and web scraping, right? Put names to all these, and you have the broad market, and you can think about the trade-offs in your tech choices, right? Okay, but all these are basically subsets of the biggest triangle of them all, which is networking, compute, storage, which is like the principal components of cloud. You can also analyze all cloud's offerings as like particular combinations of these things, right? So storage plus networking equals CDN, storage plus compute equals databases. You get a lot of these like typical kind of combinations as well. In larger clouds, you get interesting other combinations. Like this is the Amazon one, that's the HashiCorp one. All these are referenced, by the way, in the slides, which I posted up on my blog already, if you can look at it. But you don't have to remember all of these. I think like after studying tons of companies, this is kind of what I've arrived at. You have the basic principal components. I think auth is kind of the sort of unique standout that I didn't cover in there. And then you have the high performance versions of each of all of them. The interesting thing is that you can basically tie a business model to every single one of these things, right? You can pay for CPU, you can pay for bandwidth, you can pay for disk, you can pay for users. And I think like this is how you think about developer tooling and business models and how you sort of combine them ultimately, because these are the atomic units. You cannot get smaller than this. Okay, so LLM Infra. What are we going to do for these three, right? I'm going to fast forward to the answer because I don't have the sort of mental bandwidth. I'm a bit sick, and I just flew in from Brazil. I'm a bit sick, so I'm not going to sort of play this out. This is what I really think in terms of the impossible trinity of LLM Infra, and obviously there's a strong tie to Mastra at the end. So you have, at the bottom left, we have model/API hosting. I think obviously this is a very, very big market because basically it has the model labs as well as the APIs and the people that host open models as well. You have the framework sort of companies, and then you have the observability companies. And similar to like how Theorem is like kind of a false trinity because there's two sides that like really get picked a lot more than the other side. I think this also has a very similar dynamic to that. If you sort of blow this up a little bit, this is what I wrote about last year with like the individual jobs to be done of any individual one of these platforms. When you're buying an infra platform, you are basically buying some bundle of this. If you don't have it in the platform that you picked, you're going to have to build it on your own, or wait for them to build it for you. If you're investing in them, you're kind of going up against whoever's in neighboring territory because that's eventually what you have to do anyway to conquer some land. I would have answered more of these in sort of Q&A, but I do think that one of the more underappreciated things is like what actually an LLM API platform does for you. I think a lot of people underappreciate what that might look like. Anyway, I'll just keep going. So Mastra obviously started out as a TypeScript framework, and I think has done a very, very good job of like owning that space that LangChain left behind. I think, but also what's interesting for me and totally predictable if you understand impossible theory, impossible theory is that what Mastra did next, which is all this stuff, right? Observability, evals, auth, and Mastra model router, which I just looked at the blog. I was like, oh yeah, all right, it's right there. I know exactly where to put it because I'm not surprised at all once you study the market. These are all the same jobs that need to be done. So I think the question for you guys as developers is, what bundle of this do you need? What bundle of what sort of superset of tools do you need to get your job done? I think a general approach to what I think about and recommend developers in their careers and in their investing and building and founding things is the problems always stay the same, the solutions come and go, right? So as long as you deeply understand the problem and understand like the checklist of like, here's everything I have a strong opinion that I need, and then you have a very robust basis to evaluate solutions that solve those problems. So I strongly recommend you think about this. You may not agree with me exactly on the placement of this or the naming of the category, but usually impossible triangles arise everywhere in life, and LLM Infra is no exception.